in here. I want to make sure we are getting started essentially at the reasonable time. But we're going to be doing the invasion of Yugoslavia today. So this is quite a large operation. And we'll explain it a little more in depth when everybody gets here. But once again, very, very large operation here that we're going to be facing. And I can't wait to take a look at what's going to be here. For now, we're just going to take a look here, see if any of you guys are in yet. If not, we will get started in a few minutes. Hi, Lancer. Good to see you, bud. So for those of you wondering, I think you just got here, Lancer, we're going to be playing Yugoslavia today. Now, I don't believe this is the actual invasion of Yugoslavia that the Clinton administration did with Nato, all that stuff. I think this is a sort of hypothetical scenario, if that makes sense. Hey, Corrupt Drug. Hey, Moonin. Good to see you, Van Bishop and Duckman. Says, looking forward to seeing some operational Art of War 4. I think Slytherin heard you, and they put me up to the task. I absolutely adore this game. Many of you know that on my channel I've got a Chechen campaign. I've got a French Indochina War campaign, essentially French-Vietnamese War campaign. So this is definitely right up my alley. Now, today we're going to be playing a campaign that I have never played before. At least I've looked at it, but I've never actually played it in depth. And we're going to be playing the Invasion of Yugoslavia in 1999. So, should be interesting. And again, I don't know if this is the invasion of Yugoslavia backed by NATO. I believe this is a hypothetical invasion. And Zimbabwe, that's right, Krupp. Thank you. I forgot about that one. Zimbabwe I also did. And there's one other, Grenada, that I also did on my channel. A lot of fun. Grenada is actually probably one of the fastest scenarios in this game. So, guys, we'll get started in about 4 minutes. I'm going to just let people keep on getting in here. But yeah, Grenada was really, really fun, and if you're new to the game, I would recommend it, just because I think it's like 12 turns and a fairly easy mission if you play as the U.S. If you play as Grenada, then, my goodness, you've got to be incredible at this game to win. Yeah, thank you, Solaristics. Would I share some light on how the order of battle works in the Operation Art of War HQ role and stuff? So there's actually a tutorial on the Slytherin group channel that that I did. I think if you... it's going to be tough to find it. I hope Simone pops up. If he does, he can share it with you guys. But I have done a tutorial specifically on that for Slytherin group. You'll find it somewhere there. Suffice it to say, you want to keep your HQs fairly close to your men. Thank you, Greenwald. Good to see you, bud. All right, guys, we're going to get started. I think it's only fair. So, in this hypothetical/fictional scenario, of course, we know that Serbia specifically did undergo the wrath of the UN. Forget if it was it 96 or 99? I'm not 100% sure on that. But in this particular hypothetical scenario, we're doing a full-on invasion of the entire country of Yugoslavia. Not just Serbia, but Bosnia as well, Albania as well, Macedonia. Just every single piece here is going to be something we want to move forward on. So I'm going to take a look here. We have some KLA UCK companies. These are Kosovo companies. Many of you don't know that Kosovo is one of the reasons that the U.S. got involved in Yugoslavia. This is an area that essentially wants some independence for itself. I'm sure many of you guys have heard about Kosovo and their request for independence. And in this particular state, they might be one of the few groups that supports us in our invasion of Yugoslavia. Because, of course, a victory means potentially a country for them. And we want to make sure that happens. But as you can see, you know, when you're here in the Balkans, it's a nasty, nasty amount of hills everywhere, mountains, etc. So if we move forward, we've got to be aware of that. Now, we've already met a mountain infantry unit right here. I'm going to surround him with some Kosovo units, and I'll bring up some 1st Mech Battalion from NATO support, so some tank support. Let's bring this one up as well. He's not going to be able to move much more this turn anyway, and we're going to go ahead and plan an attack on this unit. Look at all the air support we get in this battle. It's tremendous. So we do want to try and maximize air support if we can bring it in, but we don't want to just waste it. We don't just want to call in Broken Arrow on this location and destroy everything if we don't need to. Does anybody know what Broken Arrow stands for, by the way? Let's see if any of you guys know. I'm going to grab just a few of these planes. Hopefully this is going to change the probability of victory here. And I'm just going to keep moving forward with the armor and trying to just create these little gaps. So our invasion is really starting over here west of Kosovo. And it looks like the enemy aircraft actually hit us, so the enemy does have an air force. We got to keep that in mind. I'm not sure if we're fighting Republika Srpska or if we're fighting Croatia, Bosnia, Republika Srpska, Serbia all together. Now, a lot of people will think that Republika Srpska is Serbia. It's actually not. It used to be Serbia, but during the time, Republika Srpska was a separate state from Serbia. They were all Serbs, etc. But Republika Srpska are the quote-unquote bad guys, at least according to history. Let's put it that way. According to the wars, I'm sure a lot of people would disagree with me. It's a very controversial conflict. All right, let's go ahead and hit this area. And don't forget, this is not the only area along the line that we're hitting. We're hitting a tremendous amount of positions here just to make it out. So I'll bring my HQ. Still some more tank units here. Unfortunately, they can't quite move where I want them to, but you know what? We can add them to this attack against the armored anti-tank unit. I know, it's a little crazy to attack an anti-tank unit with tanks, but you know what? As long as you overwhelm that anti-tank unit, you should be doing just fine. Yes, that's the one. Thank you, Landsman. Thank you, Corrupt Drug. So, Broken Arrow is a 90s action movie. I didn't know that. I'll have to take a look. I like B-movies, believe it or not. It's like, you don't really have to think much. You just kind of watch the mindless action. So, yeah, he's absolutely right. So, Broken Arrow is when you call in all available aircraft in the area to support you in, defenses usually. Because generally, Broken Arrow is only called when, as you mentioned, when you're about to be overrun. When the enemy units are right on top of you and you're in serious jeopardy. We got some air cav. I'm going to disembark, so we're going to have some air cav units right here. I would attack with them, but I think we'll wait just a little bit. In the meantime, we're moving all the troops over from Albania. So Albania is actually a NATO partner, I'm pretty sure, or at least a NATO ally. So this is why we get stationing rights in Albania, and probably even some Albanian troops, although there aren't that many, to be honest. See, it's a tiny country. I'm going to actually send these guys up here to the north. We're going to call this Operation Help the Guerrillas. I know, really original. But basically, I want to drop some guys here. Our guerrillas, they know how to fight, but probably don't have proper military training. So we're going to send some guys with them. As you can see, just getting through this country is going to be tough. I mean, it's primarily because of all the mountain cover here. But it's not easy. Got some Marines here. MEU. All right, let's group move to Marinaj. And once again, we're going to drop some more of these MEU units near the guerrillas. Oh, this is actually an attack helicopter. Excuse me. Put them back here. This one, I believe, can drop things off. We'll find out pretty soon here. Now, this one definitely should be able to disembark. So it might just be an issue of timing. Let's go up here to the north. This is where we've got our second or third attack wave, depending on how you look at it, against the Yugoslav forces. So I want to try and get rid of these units in the mountains if I can. Let's move here. I hate not being able to spread out my attack, but the fact is we're trying to cross a river. It's not going to be easy. So send everybody in except for my HQ. I don't want my headquarters getting hit. And we'll even call in some supporting planes. Look at this German aircraft. Nice. And a few more. And the next area we're going to drop is the Bajina Basin. So we're going to try to break through sort of both locations here. Although I might keep some troops at the Bajina Basin back. I might not necessarily attack right now in this area. I think I'll just hold off. Especially since we've got a lot of basically troops here from Bosnia. So this lets us know, without a doubt, we are fighting the Serbs. This is definitely the Serbs. Because we are in Bosnia over here to the west. And they seem to be working with us. So it's absolutely sort of like the real conflict when NATO attacked Serbia, in that our main target are going to be the Serbs here. Let's move through with all these units. I can't wait to see what turn one's going to be like, guys. I'm assuming that we're going to get a lot of air support. which would wipe out a lot of these enemy positions. But I don't want to guess that. I'm just assuming it. If we don't get air support, we still have to be able to win this one. I think we've moved just about everybody we can. Ooh, look at this. Now, these might also be some Kosovo troops or Macedonian troops. Interesting. All right, so we're going to move up the Macedonians to try to surround one of these armored units. We'll actually do a few blitz tactics here. Not too many, but I just want to be able to hit this unit from multiple angles. Let's go ahead and plan an attack. And what we should do is hopefully converge with that green group on that HQ unit in the middle. Easier said than done, but, you know, we can try. Bring in a lot of air support for this. Everything you've got. You know what? We are going to call in Broken Arrow in this position. No, we're not. We'll keep a few planes back just in case. All right, so it looks like everybody in this area is doing their best to damage the Serbs. We definitely just got another airstrike there that took out one of the units. We're going to be getting that, you know, quite often, I would guess, against the Serbs. They do have an air force. It's not the greatest in the world, but, you know, it's decent. I mean, and again, compared to NATO's forces, it's non-existent, but it's not the tiny air force you would expect. They do have some MiGs. They do have some bombers, different sorts of bombers. Don't forget that before Yugoslavia became quote-unquote Serbia, you know, Croatia, etc., Bosnia, it was Yugoslavia under Tito. So there's a lot of Soviet armament still available. And I'm sure that they're using, especially in terms of their air force, they're using some of that Soviet armament. As long as it works, boys, as long as it works. Let's get these HQs behind them. And we'll move forward with these NATO troops right here. I don't like that there's a lot of enemies waiting on that other side. It almost looks like an ambush. But we'll set our focus on the infantry over there, the Leshkovac Brigade. We definitely don't want to lose Komanovo. I am going to throw everybody into this attack except for our HQ unit. I don't want our general getting killed on this first assault, although I doubt it would actually occur. It's always good to be safe, right? Let's take a look here at the chat. The chat. What exactly are the objectives to win, says Lancer. Yeah, pretty much. So I think the objectives are obviously to have more victory points than the enemy by the end of the campaign. We'll take a look at some of the major enemy cities as we go through. There are definitely targets that we want to hit, basically. You know, specific cities. I mean, I guess the biggest one would be Belgrade up here. So Belgrade is the capital of Serbia, and 35 victory points. You can see the value right there, 30 or 25, 15. Wow, eyesight's getting really bad, Agrippa. Time to go to the eye doctor. 15, so not bad. And if we can take that, that's really the only city I'm seeing here with value. That might be it. All right. Let's end the turn, boys. All right, enemy aircraft's already getting some strikes. And more strikes. This is going to happen. I mean, it's all about air superiority. Ours is 14, theirs is 10. And like I said, for a country as small as Serbia, that's pretty damn good. They have more or less a modern air force, maybe with less numbers. Man, they're really hitting our tank divisions. They're trying to wipe our armor out, everything here. All right, so these strikes that you're seeing, like little explosions popping up on the map, that's our air superiority in action. Now, if our guys could take out their tanks, their armor, greatly diminish the strength of their army before we get into the country, that's going to be huge for us. And considering we are a modern superpower, or a group of modern superpowers, we should be able to do that, to have a proper conflict here. But we'll see what happens. Right, so that not as much action as I expected. Now, guys, we're going to take a look here at our attacks, and you can see Some of them went very well, but some of them, like this one, pretty even. I'll show you guys what the Yugoslav forces lost. So they definitely have some serious vehicles here, guys. M80s, APCs, Spogs. I'm not even sure what this is, but it looks like some sort of really mean-looking tank destroyer. And we did manage to destroy quite a few, but if we look at our own casualties, we also took a lot of damage here on this assault. Losing 16 warrior MCVs. That's pretty nasty. So these guys absolutely have modern weapons. Now let's take a look at the area where we actually did very well. And as you can see here, this was mostly due to our bombing attacks. So we actually had Turkish planes come in, other allied air forces come in and assist us. And if we look at the damage here to the Yugoslavs, or the Serbs, this is exactly the kind of damage we should be getting in battles. This will win us the war. Just taking out tremendous amounts of armament. And you can just see, look at this. They've got AT-3s, they've got SAs, anti-tank missiles. I mean, these are pretty nice. So we did lose a Strike Eagle and a Falcon. Sort of reminds me of that film Behind Enemy Lines. One of our units is going to have to escape if he was able to eject behind these enemy lines. And this is Kosovo, and obviously liberating Kosovo would be a huge start. Here we go. Okay, we've got to make sure. I think we have. So this is cool to show you guys this now. We selected both sides, and as much as I'd like to play as both sides, I'm not going to do that. I'm not playing against myself. What we want to do now is make sure that the computer player is playing as Yugoslavia. So I should have known. That was just the first bombing run. It wasn't the actual move of Yugoslavia. So maybe we'll actually get some decent hits here. You can see all those explosions. Once again, that's our air superiority coming in to assist. So as long as we're hitting those targets, we are getting some kills every time that occurs. This is NATO air superiority for you, baby. Looks like they're leaving all of their cities, which is definitely a good idea. I mean, number one, so you avoid civilian casualties, because we're going to be targeting you in those cities. And number two, not an obvious spot. Now, you know, being in a city, pretty obvious. We know there's going to be some military assets there, and our planes are going to go after them. As you can see, now our air superiority is 23-1. So now the true strength of NATO Air Force comes into power. Keep in mind, we're playing as NATO, so we're not just getting planes from the United States. We're getting planes from Great Britain. We're getting planes from from I think just about every Scandinavian country. I'm not sure Finland is part of NATO. We're getting planes from Turkey. A bunch of European nations as well. So, yeah, without a doubt. And even if they have a modern air force, we've got 10 times the modern air force they have. Keep it up. Even all the way here, deep inside Serbia, our planes are still getting some incredible attacks, trying to hit those HQs. But you can see some of those explosions not necessarily hitting a target. And, you know, pretty much that's just a missed opportunity for an air attack. There we go. That's what we want to do. Love this. So a lot are pulling away from the border. I mean, that would be great. If we can avoid a border war and we can just get into the country past that mountain range, it's going to be a lot easier. And I think that's what they would do. What I would do if I were the Yugoslavians is I would start to pull back away from the border and concentrate my forces around the capitals. There's another one up there to the northeast. I didn't see that one yet. So there's Belgrade. There's another one. And basically concentrate my forces around that and just hold out, pretty much. Maybe put some guerrilla forces in the mountains while our forces advance. But staying here and fighting a front war against us, face to face, I think we're going to beat them pretty easily. And I don't want to count my eggs before they hatch, but in my experience in this game, that's not a good suggestion to have a semi-modern military force against a modern one in frontline combat. Doesn't usually work out for the enemy. I don't know how many, if we have any Yugoslavs watching the stream. It'd be interesting to see if you guys recognize any of these town names. Any Serbs or Bosnians watching the stream. Or even Albanians. We've also got Albania represented here. And over there at Novi Pazar, that's another area that seems to be under enemy control. Actually in Serbia. So that might be the first city we approach, and maybe the first city we take from the Serbs. Now, right now, the president in power of Serbia would be Slobodan Milosevic. Definitely somebody that has had his fair share of meetings at The Hague for war crimes. Whether or not he committed them or not, we have no idea. But he's definitely the president right now. So obviously the goal is to take these cities, oust the president, put in a democratically elected government, and do the whole NATO bit. I'll take a look at the chat in a second here, guys. We just got a lot of movement going on by the Yugoslav army, and in this game, especially if you guys are new, you absolutely want to pay attention to what the enemy's doing. You can learn a lot about the kind of enemy you're facing depending on how they react with these first attacks. And it looks like these guys are acting pretty much like a modern army, readjusting positions, pushing artillery, pushing tanks to specific choke points. So I think they're doing an okay job. That being said, we are bombing the heck out of them, and I hope we keep that up. Right now, bombs are dropping on Belgrade, so certainly the people know that NATO has declared war on them, despite any sort of Serb propaganda. All right, still movement over here on the border. I guess it is the border. But I was kind of hoping that they would pull away all those forces. There's still a lot to go. I mean, you can just see here the tremendous amount of air superiority, and you can see how it drops. As we drop payloads, as our planes return to base, they need to refuel, rearm, etc. That air superiority drops a bit. But again, even if it was 3-1, we would still have a tremendous superiority here. Hello, Paul Winter. Good to see you, bud. So yeah, we have to see the destruction we've caused with our Air Force at the end of this turn. I'm hoping we have wiped out just insane amounts of Serb vehicles. One thing that I know for sure, and again, we can have you guys discuss this in the chat. When I was a kid, I think it was 96, maybe 99, that there was an attack on the Serbs with Milosevic as president, a NATO attack, but I believe it was specifically bombardments. I'm not sure if it was actual land combat. I don't think it was. The amount of Serb vehicles destroyed in those air attacks was fascinating. I remember reading the newspaper. This was when I was a kid back in Florida, and just seeing all those burnt out, destroyed vehicles and being amazed. Now, of course, this scenario is a fictional take on that because there was never actually a land invasion per se. But the amount of air power here is really, really realistic in terms of the actual attacks on the Serbs during the... would it be called the Yugoslavian Civil War? I guess we always call it the Bosnian War or something like that. I guess it's up to you. It was just air power, says Lanzer. Yep, absolutely. Very effective air power, though. And it was 99. Thank you, Kutia. I remember, I don't know why, but for whatever reason, as a kid, that was one war. I'd always been really into, like, World War II and stuff. But that was the first war that I was kind of invested in. Like, I really wanted to find out what would happen. Because, we don't have a lot of nuance as kids. So all I knew was Slobodan Milosevic, bad guy, USA, good guys. That's all I knew. So I was always reading the newspaper to see kind of what would happen. They're moving some HQs around. They've definitely done some logistic moves here. Maybe some reinforcing. And we're still getting hits. Oh, there's also some battles going on right there at the border. They did not pull away. Brave Serbs. Oh, thank you, Cryptdrug. I think I've seen that, the death of Yugoslavia. That follows Yugoslavia from the very end when Tito died to the very end when it broke up, I'm pretty sure. So let's take a look here, guys. Look at the amount of conflicts we have from these bombardments. We only have one actual attack on land. The rest are just bombs being dropped. So let's see if we did any damage here to the Yugoslavian forces. Yeah, absolutely. Not bad at all. Took out one... Well, we disabled a Stinger missile. How would you disable but not kill a Stinger missile with a jet aircraft? That's what I want to know. Okay, sorry. This was the land attack. Never mind. Not bad. Let's take a look here at this bombardment. Yeah, so we still lost some guys. This was not totally a bombardment. It looks like we were also firing stingers, using our land forces to push forward. But in general, yeah, it's looking pretty good for us. We'll look at an area where they took very little damage, and as you can see here, we still managed to take out some stingers, took out some heavy machine guns, and some assault squads. So it's decent. It's a decent start. I'm not sure, Kutia. Okay, you have reinforcements. Here we go. Let's see if we get any news objectives. Yes, we do. So, June 1st, 1999, NATO military begin invasion of Yugoslavia. An urban area has been reduced to ruins. Kačanik has been reduced to ruins. NATO has captured Kačanik. Jačinke, we've also captured that. Gojorop, we also captured that. And refugees clog roads in Kosovo. Russia deploys additional airborne units to Serbia. Oh my gosh. So guys, no wonder they have a decent air force. They're being supported by the Russians. Yeah, now this is definitely a hypothetical scenario, but a fascinating one at that. And like I said before, Yugoslavia used to be part of Russia, right? It used to be, well, not really part of Russia because Tito was in control and he had a fair degree of autonomy, but certainly was loyal to the Soviet Union in many respects. So it makes sense that they would actually have a lot of these Soviet-era weapons, etc., and Russian support. Even though the Soviet Union has been destroyed, there's still that Russian support here for the Serbs. Let's see if we can't break right through here. There's also a town there, guys. It would be incredible to take that town. I'm not going to send the HQ in, but I will send in my guerrilla units, my Kosovo guerrilla units. And if possible, we probably want to bring in some more troops, not just bombers, but infantry, tanks, etc., although I am going to really heavily bombard this area. And the reason I'm doing this is because they have a city right there, and I want it. Okay. It'd be great if we could add this guy to the attack. Yes, we can. In fact, we're even going to send in the HQ. I know it's crazy, but the success rate is going up. And unfortunately, that right now is what's most important to us. Oh, yeah. So these are the NATO MEU SOC. If somebody wants to type in 26 MEU SOC in Wikipedia, find out what that is. Thinking some sort of advanced units, maybe paratroopers is what I would guess by the unit icon. I don't want to get the HQ too close, but in the Operational Art of War 4, you do typically, I'm not sure if it changes depending on the war you're playing or the era, it could, but you do want to keep that HQ fairly close to your men. I'm not sure what fairly close would be. Like, I would say at the max, like 3 tiles away. You really want to keep them right there with your guys. So at least all of our forces are off the beaches, well, at least starting to get well into Yugoslavia. Might take a little longer than we expected. Now, what do we got here? So this is a support unit, MEU support. Let's disembark. I hope we can take this area out, but there's a lot of guerrilla units that we're using here to attack. And again, despite the fact that they've got their hearts in the right place, not military trained, and they're essentially attacking alongside a modern army, so this could be a problem. Look at this. Apparently we have a NATO theater air missile. I want to try this thing out. Let's fire that, if not just for fun. And of course we'll send in the attack choppers here too. But I'm sure the troops here would love to overrun some Serbs, take some prisoner. The chances are very poor, but don't let that phase you in this game. Sometimes you will get things saying the chances are very poor. It's not taking everything into account. So, for instance, it's not taking into account the fact that our Air Force is probably going to heavily bombard that area before the attack even begins. You want to keep that in mind. I think like more with like pre-World War I conflicts or even World War I conflicts in this game, you do have to be a lot more careful with that because chances are, if you're setting your men to attack and it tells you it's a very poor chance that they're going to win, there's nothing else that's going to affect that. You know, maybe some artillery fire, but that's it. So there you have to be careful with that. Here, if you have a good feeling that you're going to push through, especially if, like in this case, we completely outnumber the enemy, I would go forward with it. At least try it out, see how it works. And here it's saying it's impossible to predict, but even if it said that we have a very small chance of breaking through, I would have still said yes. We also got some missiles here. Ooh, and more tanks. Okay, there. One of the MiGs actually managed to knock out one of our cavalry units. In this case, cavalry would probably be something like an APC. So this is an MLRS-FA Eagle Force missile. Okay, keep on pushing through. There's an enemy tank column here. Just want to move them out of the way slowly using high explosives. Chances of success there are good. One thing we have to be careful of, though, is this mountain infantry kind of stuck here. I'm going to plan an attack against their tank, and the success is excellent only because there's just one tank there. But we don't want to be in this position. This area over here seems pretty weak in terms of our manpower, so I want to be careful. Disembark. All right, here we go. Yeah, we're going to have to push through here. I don't feel very confident about this attack, I'll be honest with you. We don't have much of a choice. This is not the kind of war that can stop, and actually the chance of breaking through is fair. So it could be that they were just heavily damaged by our airstrikes, and they're just not as strong as they were turn one. It could be that. What about over here? More worried about our Macedonian forces. They're the ones really trapped in this fight. So here's what we'll do. We'll grab this unit, push him back, push this guy over here, and engage this unit. A lot of Serb HQs, guys. So obviously taking out headquarters, always an amazing thing to do. Hurting the enemy officer pool and just making it harder for them, really. As you can see here, setting in this tank unit, or 2 tank units, 1 APC unit, 1 tank unit, we actually see here that the chance of success is excellent. So these Serbs over here must be fairly weak. I think they're going to be putting their strongest units on the front with NATO, which makes sense. This is also a NATO country, but I think this is specifically the forces of Kosovo, if I'm not mistaken, or the forces of Macedonia. Excuse me. Here we go. All right, nice. Wow, it's a lot of tanks. And we'll just keep moving up the road here. Just don't want to send the HQs into combat. All those red 1s and 2s, you're absolutely right, Pixel. So what Pixel is talking about is if you see the unit number, I should have explained this before, but so for instance, if a unit has like 12, 7. So 12 represents the attack power, 7 represents sort of a unit number, or the amount of strength, basically. We've got a lot of 1-1 units here, which means these are pretty much just placeholders. It's kind of just like a group of men. They're holding a position, but given enough firepower, they're going to get the heck out of there as soon as possible, because they don't have enough manpower to hold it down the entire time. That could be what's happening here. Now we're going to end the turn. We're going to turn it over. Turn it over. Wow. No pun intended. We're going to turn it over to the Serbs, and let's hope that we did the right thing. As you can see over here, if you see these little red tinges on our aircraft, it means that these aircraft are being called out to missions, specifically the missions where we are advancing. So I'm not sure if we're going to get as many airstrikes as we did last turn, because we're using almost all of our planes in these attacks, but we probably will either way. Let's go ahead and the turn. There we go. They're already hitting us with their own airstrikes. That's right, Pix. Sort of like, I wanted to relate it to Magic the Gathering, but I wasn't sure how many people played Magic or have played. Oh, thank you, Pix. So Pix is talking about an overstack penalty. I didn't know about that. That if you have too many units in a stack, an orange dot will appear. We already have that on one of our stacks. So we want to maybe move those units around a bit. And as you can see, we pushed that unit out of the way. Beautiful. We'll see the battle results after this, but that's already a pretty good start. Push that unit out of the way, too. And this one over here, we're definitely going to destroy, because he's actually in our territory. He's actually in Albania right now. Somehow crossed the border there. Not a good position for him. And the guerrilla units took them prisoner. Oh, man. I don't know how Kosovo guerrillas would treat Serbian prisoners, but I can venture a guess that it wouldn't be very nice. Thank you, Kutia. And I do appreciate it when people like mention this stuff in the chat. Like I love the additional information. So Kutia is saying the Falcon 4.0 Allied Force, the flight sim describes the campaign from the Air Force perspective. Interesting. Yeah, you're absolutely right, Kutya. And actually, another thing is that Tito, in general, was despite being a socialist, very much had a lot of friction with Stalin and with all the other Soviet leaders, Khrushchev, etc. And tended to keep his loyalty to his people. That being said, during the actual conflict, or even during the actual breakup of Yugoslavia, there were tremendous amounts of Soviet weapons, tanks, whatever you want to think about, that the Serbs took. I think just about everybody that could get their hands on them took them in the war. So I think I don't think it was necessarily given to them by the Soviets. Tito may have even paid for a lot of it, but it was still there, still available. All right, so that initial Allied bombing run, that's sort of like night one, that's over. We got our fun out of that, and it could come back. We could get another bombing run, but right now it's clear that our main goal is to just wipe these units away from the border so we can just flood right in. Like an evil illness, we need an infection to get in to the bloodstream, and the infection is right there. As you can see, we've got our Albanian forces right here, our Macedonian forces right here. We've got our NATO forces right here. If we can just converge right there, we've already started to eat up this area. And obviously Kosovo is here. This, according to the international community, it would be really, really great if we could take Kosovo back and give it its independence. Show the world that we're involved in this conflict and that we're willing to, take some licks here and then. Unfortunately, we have only guerrilla units here for this attack. And some supporting assault squads, but I don't think our guerrilla units can actually break through regular infantry here. It's going to be tough. Let's see. Plan an attack. There's actually that letter. I'm not sure if this was actually sent by Tito or if it was sent by one of his adjutants or something like that. To Stalin, basically, paraphrasing. I don't want to say the letter because I'm pretty sure that somebody can post it down below. I don't want to say anything non-family friendly, let's say. But pretty much it was like, if you keep sending assassins to kill me, I'm going to send an assassin to kill you, and he's going to succeed, unlike your awful assassins. And after that, I think Stalin actually had sort of a newfound respect for Tito. All right, let's keep on spreading out here, especially since Pix told me about that penalty there. I want to make sure we get this nice and spread out. It looks pretty good. We're even sending engineers into the combat. Hey, engineers can fight too. And all that support. Yeah, I agree, Kutya. I think it could be true. I know there's a letter circulating, but again, it could also be something. It could be propaganda. Absolutely. In general, Tito did want to remain non-aligned, which was something pretty amazing that he was able to do. One of the reasons I consider him just an incredible leader for being able to succeed at also keeping a country like Yugoslavia together with the tremendous amount of ethnic, racial differences, etc. Really not racial differences. It was amazing. So when he went, the whole country kind of fell apart. Somebody mentioned the fall of Yugoslavia, or the break of Yugoslavia, the documentary. Definitely worth watching just to see the madness that took place here. So we were attacking with a pretty large force, as you guys can see. Pretty epic. But probability of success is still pretty poor. Let's hope that changes. And I'm actually going to bring in some more planes from Turkey. If they can assist us here, I'll have them join in the fun. But it doesn't look like they can attack this turn, so they may have already used up their attack. Very possible. Okay. Fingers crossed. Here we go. Wow. Yeah, there's a book out there. I think there's also a documentary called 1,000 Ways to Kill Castro. Definitely worth checking out. I mean, the stuff the CIA tried some of it was pretty funny. Castro used to love these big Cuban cigars, and one thing they did was just simply take a stick of dynamite and stick it right into one of the cigars. I think one of his guards noticed it before he did, but pretty interesting idea. I mean, when you think about the big cigars he would smoke, you could absolutely fit a stick of dynamite in there and pretty much end his day quickly. Yeah, I am attacking with HQ Commissar, and you're absolutely right. It's a noob thing to do. I'm only doing it here because I'm trying to maximize our attack. We don't plan to play this entire campaign through, so getting some good early attacks will make me somewhat happy here. Okay, 20% of our turn remains. So for those of you not necessarily understanding, like, why is it 20%? It doesn't make sense. So it's hard to explain, but basically in the Operational Art of War 4 system, there are a series of turns. I don't know if that makes sense to you. So if you're playing like a conflict that moves a lot slower, like World War I, you might just have 2 turns within a turn. In this particular conflict, I think so far we've had 4. So there's like phases to each turn. And once this restarts, we'll probably get that bombing run back again. And we'll also be able to attack. It's also probably not a good idea to push our forces. They've attacked twice, they're tired, and pushing them again wouldn't necessarily yield any great results. I will keep attacking near Makovica. This is the one area I won't let up on, just because I think we're about to take this area. Am I even pronouncing that right? Makovica. It sounds like I am, right? Pronouncing it like I know how to say it. So yeah, only that unit can move through. The rest are pretty tired. And we'll end the turn. All right, let's hope that our bombers come in and do a little more work here. Yes, Commissar, great point, and it's good that he mentions that. So I should talk about that afterwards. There's so much to talk about in the Operational Art of War 4. It's hard to get to all of it. But I believe he's talking about unit cohesion, Kami, which is a really awesome part of this game. So let's say you're playing like World War II, right? And assuming you've got maybe, just making this up, I'm not saying this would actually be the case, but assuming you've got some free French units, and then you've got some American units, and they're attacking together. The unit cohesion is going to drop a little bit. Why? They don't speak the same language. It's that simple. You might have some French guys that speak English, you might have some English guys that speak French, but in general, the communication between the 2 units is going to be affected by that. By the way, just look at all these airstrikes. They are trying to surround us, though, but we are getting a lot of airstrikes on them. But that's basically how the unit cohesion works, and that's what Commissar is talking about here, is that thankfully, in this particular attack, the Albanians have their section, the Macedonians have their section, the NATO forces have their section. We're not all mixed up together, which could affect cohesion. Hello, Lauter. Good to see you. There's so many bombing attacks right now that it's just skipping over everything. So yeah, we know we're hitting these guys with everything we've got. Just everything. They're trying to push us back into Macedonia there in the south, but it looks like our men held out. We'll also take a look at the casualty counts post-game, or post-turn, I should say. Okay, this is not good. They actually managed an attack, guys. They pushed some of our units back onto the border with Albania. Didn't expect them to be this ferocious. Now, thankfully, they got a nice little hit there, a nice little strike by our jet planes. But we've got to be able to push through that area without a lot of resistance. Because, guys, we still have the whole center of the country to take. And that's where most of the enemy units are going to be situated. You could just see around Belgrade and Pančevo, for instance, there are huge amounts of Serbian forces. And this is what we really have to contend with. So we can't be worrying about these border armies. We've got to get rid of them, man. Still a lot of movement here. Okay, all right. We're seeing some tank units move back. Not too bad. Van Bishop. Very nice comment there. Yeah, so that's actually a really interesting question. I mean, yes and no picks. I don't want to give the guy... I don't want to take away all of his anticipation. I mean, you can see, for instance, the vehicles you hit. You can see the squads you took out, etc., like at the end of a turn, that sort of thing. But like Pixel says, only at the end of the scenario do you see the entire list, where you actually get to see like how many APCs did I destroy, how many infantry did I kill, etc. I'm pretty sure there's a way to skip to the end. You can like save your game and just end the scenario if you're curious. That's another way to do it. I wouldn't recommend that, but make sure to save your game if you do. But that's an easy way to get to that page quickly. Yeah, absolutely. It's mainly those battle reports, like Pix says. Man, our Air Force is still pounding away. The more the merrier. I mean, just think about it, guys. Every single airstrike we get here is a potential, assisting factor in a future battle. If they manage to weaken those border units, we're going to just push right through them. It's not even going to be really much of a fight. But it seems like most of our airplanes, am I five? Most of our Air Force are actually hitting the center of the country, which kind of makes sense. They're hitting the capital, Belgrade, a lot. They're hitting units that are moving on these roads, and I think that what they're trying to do is hit any units trying to get to the front. So we have to deal with the units at the front, but our Air Force can keep a lot of those armored units sort of away from the front for an extended amount of time. So that's certainly very important. Okay, let's take a look. Wow, well, we had one Yugoslav air attack here that was extremely devastating to the enemy. Look at this. Look at all these fighters. A lot of fighters attacking an airfield. And it looks like we destroyed... Oh, this is our loss report. So our Thunderbolts, A-10 Thunderbolts, we had one destroyed. The rest made it through. 3 were disabled. But what that means is that they have to be repaired, etc. They still were able to make it back to base. And the Yugoslav forces here... Oh, no, they didn't lose anybody. Wait a minute. This is the Sorry, we're looking at the Yugoslav casualties. Let's take another look at that. We tried to attack their airfield with our Thunderbolts. They shot us down. They didn't lose a single one of their guys there. So right now, enemy loss refers to us. So we want to look for friendly loss here. Oh, sorry, guys. We had a little shutdown there. See if we can jump into the autosave. If not, we'll jump into another scenario. Yeah, I would more or less agree with that, Van Bishop. I mean, the reason I played the Operational Art of War 4 is, one of the reasons, I think, is just the fact that you get to play all of these modern conflicts, hypothetical conflicts, etc. In fact, what we'll do here, guys, we'll get out of this conflict at the end of this bombing run, and we'll take a look at either the World War I conflicts or the pre-World War I conflicts that Van Bishop is mentioning here. So this game has hypothetical scenarios. It's got modern conflicts from all over the world. Asia, Europe, you can even have conflicts in the United States. You can do the 2008 U.S. Civil War, which is interesting. I don't know if it's Democrat versus Republican or what it is, but something's going on there. And there's just a lot of options in this game. So we'll take a look at one of those scenarios that he's mentioning. Now, I really like the World War I conflicts in the Operational Art of War 4, and I'll tell you why. I think World War I is such a massive, massive conflict, such a massive war, that you need it to be represented with NATO counters on like a large map. They do that very, very well in this game. And obviously when you're talking about World War I, the amount of NATO counters, it's unbelievable. You just got infantry everywhere. You've got some artillery, of course, but you really have to use the might of the infantry to push through. Yeah, it kind of is, Kutya. It kind of is. So Kutya says World War I is hard to simulate in hex games. Yeah, especially since, cutting off supply lines, things like that, it's extremely important in conflicts like World War I or World War II. not so important in modern conflicts where you can get supplies brought in by air, etc. It's a little more complicated to do that in those conflicts. Oh, cool, Pixel. That's neat. I think with the one war, talking about pre-World War I stuff, the one war that they have here that amazes me, I've only seen it represented in one game, Ironclads, I believe, the Russo-Japanese War. So for those of you that don't know, pre-World War I conflict between the Russians and the Japanese, really brutal war, incredibly brutal, and one we don't really hear about too much. We can take a look at that. That's a fascinating conflict, it really is. I don't know much about it. Typically with the conflicts we face here in this game, I'm able to provide some historical background. I'm able to give you guys some info, but I have to say, in terms of the Russo-Japanese War, my knowledge is extremely limited. I know there's some really cool artwork that I've seen from it, but in terms of the actual conflict itself, excuse me, I'm not sure what it was over, etc. I'm sure it was over probably land, but brutal conflict nonetheless. Oh, definitely, Pixel. Pixel saying the counters are the way to go, and I agree. I think in general to keep a realistic, let's say hex-based war game, NATO counters are really important. That being said, look, I'm guilty of this myself. I don't know if any of you guys are, but in games like Strategic Command, once I understand the counters pretty well, let's say I'm playing a scenario just for fun, I might switch to the 3D counters, because I like to see, the soldiers represented and all that stuff. But in general, I think for a historical game to be the most accurate, yeah, you're going to have to go with the NATO counters like we have here. And learn your NATO symbols. I'm actually planning to do a video on my channel at some point identifying all the NATO symbols. Because I think, people have issues. I still struggle with some, but I know most of them. Definitely something important if you're a historical war gamer. That's right, Pix. Before World War II, it was what the League of Nations, or I guess the League of Nations would represent the UN more, right, than NATO. But he's right. Post World War II, what year was it? 1947, 48. End of World War II was 45. Although if you want to be real technical, maybe early 46 with the Pacific War going on. But yeah, I would guess when was NATO started? Let's get a date on that. Now, for those of you that don't understand, NATO is the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, or is it an organization? I believe it's the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, but essentially it's a group of countries willing to work together and defend each other in these conflicts. In case another country attacks them, they're all working together for the same common goal. They'll jump in and assist their neighbor, or maybe not even their neighbor, just their ally, period. 1949, thank you, Grey Knight. Nice. I wonder what were the initial countries in NATO, because I know a lot have joined over time. Is Turkey part of NATO? I believe they were. They might not be anymore, but I believe Turkey is a part of NATO. I know Portugal is. We're a tiny part, but we're part of it. We put in like 2 jet planes. Hamster wheels, keep things running. But it's something. All right, so here we go. What we're going to do is jump out of this one, guys. And if you want down below, what I'll do here, since I want everybody to get a chance to take a look. Let's first of all save this, just in case we want to come back. I'm going to go ahead and start a new game, and especially for those of you guys that have never seen the different scenarios available, I want to go through them, and then we'll select one and take a look. So let's jump over here. This is, first of all, we're looking just at the available scenarios here for the modern conflicts. So we've got Cyprus. This is, of course, the war between the Cypriots and the Greeks against the Turks. Well, there's Greek Cypriots and Turkish Cypriots. You really can't ascribe one or the other. We've got Desert Storm China. I love this. Now, this is basically if Operation Desert Storm was led by the Chinese and not by the Americans. Just imagine how different that would be. Really fascinating campaign, though. I was talking about campaigns that people, like beginners, should get into. I would recommend this one right here. This is Grenada, 1983, also known as Operation Urgent Fury. And basically you're playing as, well, you can play as either side, of course. That's another thing I should have mentioned. In this game, not only can you play as either side, but you can hot seat it. So if you've got a buddy over that wants to play, you just go ahead, set the game up for human controlling both sides, and as soon as you're done with your turn, turn it over to him or her. But in this one in particular, I would really recommend people playing as the United States here and trying to take out take out the Grenadan forces. Another reason I think this is a great beginner mission is because you're learning how to transport helicopters, you're learning how to transport troops on helicopters, how to drop them off, how to call in airstrikes, and these are all things you really need if you want to be good at this game, without a doubt. What I'll do here, guys, I'll jump into some other scenarios. We were talking about World War I and pre-World War I. So I'll show you the pre-World War I stuff here, which is pretty cool. So, of course, we've got some American Civil War stuff, Antietam, etc. Oh, thank you, Krupdrug. Portugal was a founding member. Nice. Portugal reconquers Mozambique. Only in my wildest dreams. Balkans. We've, of course, got the war in the Balkans. Now, this is another one. We're just in the Balkans, but this is between the Bulgarians and the Ottoman Empire. And, again, much like World War I, we're talking about massive trench warfare, a lot of dead on all sides, just vicious. Now, I was telling you guys about the Russo-Japanese War, and that's represented here in Double Eagle Rising Sun. 1904 to 1905. Not every single scenario comes with a history. This one doesn't, for instance, but a lot of the scenarios that you click will come with a detailed history or explanation, like this one right here for the American Civil War, about what's going on, etc., and what you can expect. Really like that. And of course, good old Leipzig. So a lot of different possibilities here, guys, in the pre-World War I department. And we jump into World War I, and we've got just about everything here. Very well represented. You can play the Battle of Gallipoli. You can even do the Greco-Turkish War of 1922. Now, this is not technically part of World War I, but since it's in the same wheelhouse, it's represented here. And, of course, Kaiserschlacht. If you don't want to do the entire Kaiserschlacht, which is the last German offensive of World War I, there's a mini version, because Kaiserschlacht right here is a huge campaign. Absolutely massive, okay? So if you don't have that much time, you'd go for the mini version. I would highly recommend that. Let's take a look here. Now, what would you guys like to see? If anybody has any recommendations, drop them down below, and we'll take a look at them. I'm going to be jumping through a few other groups here to show you guys. So I'll show you the modern Asian scenarios here. So, of course, a lot of Vietnam War scenarios. We've got also Korean War scenarios, the Chosin Reservoir. I actually have a campaign on my channel, the War of Indochina, and I'm on episode 19, I believe, and we aren't even close to being done. We've also got Kashmir 1999, so this is Pakistan against India, if, of course, they ended up going to war. Oh, wait a minute. It looks like China is involved in this one. A hypothetical scenario based on the 1998-99 military review. This area compromises one of the world's most dangerous flashpoints. Now, the reason that Kashmir is such a dangerous flashpoint is because Pakistan and India are always fighting for control over it, and they both have nukes. So that's a problem, as you can see. I think what we'll do here, guys, let's take a look here. Make sure nobody has... Walvis Bay. Oh, interesting. Walvis Bay, is Krupdrug is saying. I'm not sure I'm too familiar with Walvis Bay. So this is Walvis Bay. We'll take a look at what Krupp is talking about. It's the last colonial confrontation. So South Africa against Namibia, it looks like. Ah, interesting. So Namibia is being supported by Cuba. And this actually reminds me quite a lot. Is this a real scenario? It could be, because with the South African border war, it was between Angola and South Africa, and Angola received Cuban support. So perhaps this is another take on that? I'm not sure. So let's make sure that we are the ones representing South Africa against Namibia. And let's take a look at this one. This does look interesting. Thank you, Krupp. I don't think I've ever taken a look at this scenario, so this will be new for me as well. Whoa! That is cool. Very cool. All right. So, as you can see, each scenario is going to be different. This one, it very much, it minimized the actual map here so that you're focusing on, almost a specific battle as opposed to an entire campaign. And you have that in this game. You've got certain campaigns that focus on an entire war. So, for instance, you've got the Indochina Campaign, 50 to 55. of France in Vietnam, but you've also got the Battle of Dien Bien Phu, which is a little shorter and really just focuses on one part of the country. Yeah, hypothetical. That's what I was thinking. Because I do know that it's kind of based off a real conflict. I think it's based off the South African border war, but this is if they attack Namibia. This is another thing I should have mentioned. This is pretty cool. So on some scenarios, mainly modern ones, I think a few World War I ones as well, you do get chemical weapons, tear gas, mustard gas, all sorts of stuff. Now in this battle, there are none of those, but that occasionally does happen. All right, let's start moving forward. Oh my goodness, look at that Namibian convoy right there. Man, that's terrifying. I don't want these guys to overlap, so we're going to try to move this group over here. We've even got some military police involved in this attack. I'm not sure if there's any, if anybody knows of any situation where MPs were ever, how can I put this? Go ahead, let me just deploy all my guys. Where MPs were ever in a situation where they had to actually fight during a battle. I'm sure it's occurred, I've just never heard of it. I don't think there's going to be many attacks I want to do. As mentioned by Pix, this is a defensive scenario. So I might still strike out here a little bit. But in general, the best thing to do here is really just hunker down. So let me cancel all attacks. Yeah, we're just going to hunker down here. We're going to dig in with the entire group. So this is pretty much the equivalent of setting up trenches, etc. And we're just going to hold out. Let's get back to root bank. Dig in with these guys too. In some instances, I might try to help. But over here, no, we're not even going to be able to get into the desert. As you can see, we can only stay on this track. So this might be a train here, if I'm not mistaken. I'm going to push him back over here. Nope. Still got a group move, and let's deploy. Dig in. Everywhere we can dig in, we're going to do just that. Really? I didn't know that hedge. He said if you do really well, the U.S. will nuke you if you're playing the Korean scenario. I haven't seen that, but that's pretty funny. All right, end the turn. In other words, you have to do well, but not too well. If that kind of makes sense. All right, here we go. So again, defensive scenario, and we're playing as South Africa. It's hard to believe. Thank you, Pix. Okay, here we go. Is that it? Okay, well, we'll end the turn again. Again, all we have to do is hold Walvis Bay, so we're going to let them do all the legwork for this one. Here we go, Namibia. I wonder what the BDR stands for. That's something I'm not familiar with in terms of NATO terminology. Battalion, I'm not going to try to guess. Suffice it to say, the enemy is going to probably push them out. Maybe not. Oh, they're even hitting our ships. I didn't expect them to do that. I definitely expected ground combat. But it looks like they're trying to attack us in any and every way possible. Border guards. Thank you, Pixel. That makes sense. BDR. Blu-ray disc says hedge. That's somewhat unfunny, because truth be told, if you offered some of these Namibians a Blu-ray disc to just, switch sides, they'd probably bring everybody in their squad along with them. It is Africa. It is a tough place. Not easy. Okay, let's see what's going on here. So again, friendly loss in this case would reference the enemy. It would reference Namibia since they're the ones attacking. Let's see what sort of armaments they've got here. They've got T-34s. Wow, guys. This is incredible. 1991, and Namibia's using T-34s. It's, we all love T-34s, don't get me wrong. But, there's a time and place for everything. And T-34 in 1991, look, a well-placed RPG shot is going to turn that thing into just a burning hunk of metal. Although I will say, I am impressed. I am impressed that Soviet tank can still be used. That's pretty amazing. Over here, we didn't lose a single person. So you can just see the difference here in the attacks. This might be the only place where they actually were able to damage us, and it's because they had Cuban forces with them. So let's take a look here. These are our losses. Actually, a pretty good attack, all things considered. They hit us pretty well. If we take a look at their losses, yeah, we did pretty well too. In general, though, these Cubans are the ones bringing in the T-62s, the BTR-60s, etc., the more modern stuff. And this is actually a T-62 Flame. That's beautiful, man. Good to see pelicans and flamingos, indeed. Okay, so we're still holding out, not really doing much here. It is our turn at this point. You guys can see right there the flags with the points over them. Those represent the victory points, essentially the areas that we want to hold to get a successful victory in this game. Right now, if we ended right now, this would be an overwhelming victory since we have 35 of the 46 victory points. Of course, it wouldn't be fair to end the battle right now. We want to fight the whole thing through. But again, in this situation, all I would do is keep on digging in to a tremendous degree. So we'll save here, guys. Let's go ahead and do that. Yeah, this is definitely a train, so I'm understanding now why this unit is stuck between. This is a train in between the delaying position and Walvis Bay. Would you guys like us to continue with the Battle of Walvis Bay here until the end of the stream, or would you guys like us to take a look at another conflict? And if you guys want us to take a look at another conflict, make sure to specify, maybe we won't specify conflicts, but specify time period. And we'll jump into that. Because I want to make sure that you guys, especially those of you that have never played the game, really get an idea of what the game here has to offer. Let's go ahead and open something new. We've also got this another interesting one, guys, for fairly, well, not hypotheticals. This would be the Bay of Pigs, but it is a hypothetical because it's not the Bay of Pigs. It's based off the Bay of Pigs. For those of you that don't know, that's when Kennedy essentially got a lot of Cuban expats to try and start a revolution against Castro. It failed miserably. A lot of Cubans killed right on the beach, and they never tried again. Another battle. Van Bishop is saying he wants the Battle of Drang. We've actually got the Battle of Drang Valley here on the Slytherin channel, I believe, that I did on a previous stream. Really fun fight, of course. So we could go to the Drang Valley. If no one else gives me any suggestions, we'll jump into the Drang Valley. For that, we want to go to Modern Asia. It's right here. And of course, we get an entire explanation here of the Drang Valley, etc. For those of you that don't know, there's a movie out, We Were Soldiers, that's based off this battle with, I believe it's Mel Gibson. Yeah, with Mel Gibson. Sort of the first land battle, or I wouldn't say the first land battle, the first, set-piece battle against the Vietnamese. All right, Jackalus is saying Drang too, so we'll jump right in. And again, we are playing as the U.S. Army. And Arvin, for those of you that don't know who Arvin is, Arvin represents the South Vietnamese forces loyal to us. Now, you can also do, and I think I should mention this, you can also do the entire Vietnam War if you want. We're playing one battle here, and that's great. And as you can see, the map is much more centered on this area. Plai Mae, which is the village near the Drang Valley where so many men were lost. But you could do the entire war. You could do the entire Indochina War. Remember, Indochina, Vietnam, same thing. But during French colonialism, it was called Indochina. The Indochina campaign is 50 to 55, and I believe the U.S. campaign is 66, or 65 to 72. Although many could argue that the Americans were probably there in the early 60s. Not everybody's going to be completely open about that. Okay, so we're actually let's take a look here. We're actually playing as the Viet Minh, I believe. Yeah, I think we're playing as the Viet Minh right now. Oh, yes, we're playing against the Americans. Okay, we could do that. Or in this case, it would be the Viet Cong. The Viet Minh would be against the French. Let's go ahead and do the computer player. Would be North Vietnam. Yeah, there we go. I like that you use "As Good as It Gets" as a reference point, because that's a movie I think that not many people are familiar with. Yeah, you're absolutely right, Hedge. So that is a good point that Hedge makes. Big distinction. You've got the North Vietnamese Army, which is a regular army representing North Vietnam, and then you've got the Viet Cong. They work in conjunction with the NVA, but the Viet Cong are mostly made up of South Vietnamese citizens that are, essentially during the day pretending to be regular farmers in the fields, etc., not really bothering anybody, and at night put on their dark pajamas and head out into the bush to ambush some Americans. So yeah, we are playing as ARVN right now. It looks like maybe right now all we have are ARVN units. Things maybe haven't really popped up yet. This is just the Plymay camp, and we know it's being attacked by a lot of enemy infantry. So we're just going to hold out. I'm going to dig in the entire group and just wait for reinforcements. And that's really the best thing to do in the Battle of Drang. You need to wait for the Americans to arrive. And they're arriving. So we're getting the 2nd Corps here. And really, this is a major battle for the United States Air Cav. The Air Cav did an amazing job here. One of the divisions within the U.S. Army. And of course, they go all the way back. It's now called the Air Cav, but the cavalry goes all the way back to the times of Custer, etc. This is air cavalry. And they were able to come in here and really do quite a lot of damage. But of course, one could say that despite this being an American victory, the battle, it was really a Pyrrhic victory. The North Vietnamese showed that they could face the Americans on open ground and maybe not win, but obviously cause some serious damage. End of the day, the NVA, after the Ia Drang Valley, changed their tactics from set-piece battles to guerrilla tactics, just like the VC. The fact was they couldn't compete with the Americans on open ground, although they did cause some serious casualties. All right, nice. We got some reinforcements. That's what I'm talking about, baby. Some American reinforcements, the best kind. We could push these guys forward. I'm seeing, wait a minute, what's this? These could be ARVN units. Yeah, these are interesting. These are ARVN Ranger units. I think so. I don't like to attack on a river tile, but I also don't like to attack a large group like this. We're going to take that risk, though. So no, these are American units, excuse me. Rangers, etc. Nice, okay. So this is what happened initially in the Battle of Ia Drang Valley. We don't want to get too happy. Essentially what happened was the Americans began their attack. They were able to spot, I think, a group of enemy scouts, and they took them prisoner, and they were like, oh, this is it. We've won the battle. No. So even if we do really well here, and we can even call in air support, doesn't really make a difference. The actual NVA units are well hidden in this valley, and I believe they come from one of these hills. They pop right out, and you just got a tremendous amount of NVA units to deal with. So this is by no means a finished battle. Oh, this is interesting. Now, I haven't seen this before. Look at that NATO unit. So this is a heavy weapon marker, but it looks an awful lot like a crucifix. I know what an artillery marker looks like. That one is not an artillery marker. All right, air cav is arriving, boys. Let's go ahead and disembark. We really just want to pop these guys out all over the place and prepare for a defense because the enemy is going to arrive in force. And at that point, we think we're the attackers, but once we actually get to this valley, we become the defenders very quickly. It looks like that unit can't move. I almost thought it was like a chaplain unit. But, there are chaplains in certain units, but there wouldn't be just a unit made up of chaplains, I don't think. Be a little strange. All right. Let's hope that our forces can break through. Well, they are. It's interesting you mentioned that, Pixel. Pixel's talking about China and whether or not they're the newest colonial power. China is certainly invests a tremendous amount of money in East Africa. I know that much. Probably a good idea too. Let's take a look here. Let's see how our first engagement went. So this is what we hit on the NBA side. Some assault squads, assault anti-tank squads, medium MGs, even an 82mm mortar. We also lost a few, though. We lost a Walker Bulldog M41. I'm not actually familiar with this unit. We lost a Greyhound, and we lost an assault squad. So pretty even fighting, honestly. It's not much of a difference between us. Oh boy, Commissar, tell us about it. It sounds like Orwell. That's frightening. It's so frightening. Bone Bleeder says it would be great if this game were on Steam. It would be, my friend. It would be. I'd love that as well. But again, I mean, you know, the multiplayer works great. You know, you can obviously get involved with some folks that play this game via the Slytherin forums or the Matrix forums, and you guys can get together, you know, just like you would with friends on Steam and play it. You just want to find the right group. Let's hope the game is eventually on Steam. But, you know, this is a very niche game, guys. I mean, I'm really happy that those of you watching, you guys appreciate it because you're, I don't want to say true strategy gamers, but we kind of are. You're true strategy gamers, but I think many strategy gamers might not be so open to a game like this. They might see this as too complex. If I were to recommend an operational level war game, hex-based war game to somebody, for a beginner, for instance, I would recommend the Operational Art of War 4. And why is that? I wouldn't say it's easy to understand. There's a lot of things you need to learn, but the initial setup of like sending men out, attacking enemies, etc., that's fairly straightforward. And I think a lot of the reason people get scared away from games like this is they're too afraid they're not going to understand the game. I think with the Operational Art of War 4, most people will understand. Look at this. We've got some NVA troops right here on the road, just waiting for us. I want to give them what they want, which is probably some combat. Let's do that. We're going to go ahead and plan an attack here, guys. Last thing we need are enemies on the road. I'm even going to bring in... I'm going to call Broken Arrow, actually. We don't really need to, but just for fun. Hit them with everything we've got. Chance of success is good. Of course it is. So, Krupp, we do have a tutorial. I would recommend posting that on the Slytherin videos about the need for another tutorial. I know we have a tutorial for this game. I know because I did it when I used to work at Slytherin. But I'm not sure if there's a newer one or anything like that. But if you guys request one, yeah, please, like, make sure to let the folks at Slytherin know you want some more. And I'm sure that they'll do their best to help out, because I know that, you know, it's definitely a game that needs a tutorial. There's no doubt about that. Let's see. Do we have another chopper here? I don't know why I can't leave yet. Let's end the turn. Let's just hope that that engagement works out pretty well. End turn. Thank you, Van. Nice. Oh, man. I expected it to go well, but yeah, it went really well. I mean, it doesn't look like a lot, but it's not bad, guys, for an attack. Now, one thing that's frustrating is they didn't retreat, so they're still on this road in front of our men. I don't like that at all. Oh, that's unfortunate, Pix. That is unfortunate. I mean, I know there's a tremendous amount of scenarios available already in this game. I really don't believe anybody's going to run out of things to do in this game, even if you get it now. But that is unfortunate, because one of the things that made this such a great game, and you'll see the message pop up before a lot of scenarios here, is the Operational Art of War 3. And what they were able to do was a lot of the battles they were able to bring over to the Operational Art of War 4. And those were user-made battles. A lot of them were user-created. So the users are a big part of this game, without a doubt. Man, I'm annoyed at those NBA troops. I can't believe they held out. I'm just kind of frustrated. Let's bring down more infantry. We're going to break through this group. I won't have it. Actually, we'll go for this one since he's kind of off on the side. And as you can see here, there's several tiles around the center block. This represents like also the position of our units. So our guys are kind of surrounding them here. That absolutely helps. 1 second, folks. Okay. I'm calling in every single support plane, also because we're getting closer to the end of the stream. I'm just going to throw everything I've got at these guys. And there's actually no reason we shouldn't use planes for this initial attack anyway. Kateka. This seems to be an area we definitely have to hold. Let's see how this attack goes. %38 lost on the enemy side, and they finally pulled back. And typically, it doesn't take 2 attacks, but not bad. We did lose a light attack helicopter. Now, a light attack helicopter, this is not a Huey. A Huey's a transport chopper. Well, actually, HH could be Huey. It could also be a Cobra. I would guess that's a Cobra. Cobras are well known as attack helicopters. My dad always refers to them as Barracudas because when he was in Vietnam, he saw quite a few, and when you look at a Cobra from the front, it's such a skinny helicopter. It's kind of like, if you know Barracuda in the water, one of the amazing things about that fish, the predatory fish, the Barracuda, is it's very skinny. So when it's approaching its prey, they don't really see it until it's like really close to them. I guess a Cobra is similar, and then it's a very, very sort of tiny helicopter, but with some incredible firepower. You know, the ability it has to wipe out enemy positions is really second to none. Oh, they're really striking here, man. They want to get us out of the jungle without a doubt. So as you can see here, casualties pretty okay. These are all bombardments from the North Vietnamese. In most positions, the VC or the North Vietnamese, they're not going to be getting that much artillery support, but during this battle, they absolutely had arty support. Didn't have air support, but arty support pretty much gets the job done when you're calling it in on the enemy. Now, we are reaching the end of this stream, folks, so if anybody has any questions, comments, etc., please do drop them down below. Again, you can find me simply by just clicking my name here and subscribing. I do a tremendous amount of games here. It's Agrippa Maxentius. I do a tremendous amount of games on Twitch, as well as on my YouTube channel. I'd love to see you guys stop by. Sifel says, I like the Cobra. Yes, Norm Koger is an amazing designer, Kamistar. He's talking about the creator of the actual system itself. Oh, absolutely, Kamistar, absolutely. So Kamistar here was just mentioning that he tested older scenarios, even older than the Operation Art of War 3, and they still work pretty well in this system. I wouldn't recommend doing like the Operation Art of War 2 scenarios. I'm sure they probably still work, but you're going to run into some issues. But in general, this is a game that you like whenever they increase to like Operation Art of War 3, 4, they can generally bring the old missions along, which I think is really great. A lot of these missions are just really fun missions. Why get rid of them? Seems kind of silly. Van Bishop. I said it before, change NATO counters with barely clothed anime images, and the Operation Art of War 4 will be a hit on Steam. Yes. Unfortunately, there's a lot of garbage on Steam. We know that. That's true. Okay. We're going to jump into one more scenario here since we are at the very end of the of our stream here, and I'm going to make this a very random one. I think I'm just going to open one that I've never even looked at. So let's jump into either hypothetical or I don't think we'll go into pre-World War I. Let's go into hypothetical. This is too hypothetical. We do have the revisionist war of 1937. Okay. I just want to see what the front looks like. So once again, guys, this is just the World War I scenarios. I want to take a look at the Greco-Turkish War. I'm sure a lot of people will want to take a look at Gallipoli as well. An amazing fight. But in this one, let's go with the Greco-Turkish War, and it looks like Turkey is going to be playing as a computer. I just want to see what it looks like. Much like the Russo-Japanese War, this is a conflict I know very little about. So it's going to be interesting to see, although I do know that there's always been a disagreement over Turkish territory versus Greek territory that's gone on for centuries, really. Wow! Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, guys. So this is definitely World War I era numbers here. If you guys take a look at the strength and defense points of our units, defense points perfectly reflect trenches. So 24, 9 attack, 24 defense, perfectly reflecting trench warfare. And, of course, in these World War I scenarios, you don't have to worry so much about air support. You don't have to worry so much about, well, you worry some about artillery support. But in general, you're not worrying about all those things. So maybe World War I scenarios would be better for starting players. I'm still not going to say with 100% certainty that I believe that to be the case. Either shorter modern scenarios or these. I think this is a pretty interesting setup. I'll go ahead. I'm just curious to see what the casualties would be like. Ooh, we've got some bombers here. The 533 Squadron. So again, I just want to see, out of curiosity, what the casualties are like here. And as Pixel mentioned, you can only really see at the end of the actual scenario the actual casualties, the amount of men lost, etc. We get a pretty good idea here. 30% of their forces lost. That's a successful attack. 0% of ours lost. And look at that. Just annihilating rifle squads. But look at that. Just in one area, 64 rifle squads, 64 early rifle squads, 62 rifle squads, some medium machine guns and mortars. A pretty standard trench line. And we lost not a single unit. So I would think that if we continued this campaign, we'd probably end up doing pretty well. All I would do is swing around with these units, get behind the enemy over here, and sort of just trap them. Hopefully we could at least trap these units near Nazilli and Ayan, and then move north and wipe out the rest. Of course, we're talking about, like, all of Greece here, parts of Turkey. This is pretty creepy stuff, man. It's not going to be easy. So we've got over here Istanbul, or Constantinople if you're Greek. Let's move down, and of course Athens would be over here. Yep, Athena. And what used to be Sparta, Kalamata. Oh, there's Sparti right there. So pretty interesting. This really encompasses all of Greece and parts of Turkey here. You can just see the amount of victory points is huge. But once again, like many of the campaigns in this game, and we should probably touch upon replay value here, the replay value is massive because this could take weeks to finish. This could take a very long time. Like I said, on my YouTube channel in my French Indochina campaign, I must have put in at least 18 hours into the campaign. I'm still not done with it. Ow! Doesn't that always feel great when you smash your elbow on a table? Oh, it's a great feeling. Oh my goodness. Okay. Maybe Bone Bleeder. That's an interesting thing to bring up, I think, with the Slytherin staff. Yeah, absolutely. Anyway, guys, thank you so much, guys, for stopping by and checking out the stream. As always, I love to see you guys after the stream. So if you'd like, stop by here on YouTube to my channel. You can also click my name and add me on Twitch. I basically only do strategy games for the most part. I occasionally do shooters, but that's really my forte and what I like to do. What can I say? So make sure to stop by there. And guys, it's been a blast. I always love streaming with you guys, but especially when we get to take a look at a number of different conflicts like we did today. Not just one, but just a bunch. And like I said, in regards to replay value, the replay value in this game is huge. We've only looked at 3 battles. And there are so many others, or 3 wars, battles, whatever you want to call them. There's so much more here. So I highly recommend any of you guys that aren't yet sure if you want to pick up the Operational Art of War 4, pick it up. It's absolutely worth your time. Not a problem, Paul. It's hard to see with that teal. My goodness. Not a problem at all, my friend. Thank you, Van Bishop. I'm glad it was, man. Thank you. Thank you, Dachman Lanzer, Bluebell, and Grey Knight. All right, guys, I'll catch you on the next one. Hopefully, I'll see you this week again. If I don't, I'll hopefully catch you next week, and we'll touch upon another game. It seems like Slytherin has been listening to you guys in terms of, like, those of you guys that like to see the